Hey everybody, make sure your new players know about the UGN referral code ACE and that they know about the code PLUGIN that they can use to save 5% off at unfunstuff.com.
What a maneuver!
What's up everybody? I had this cool little presentation that I did on my live stream where I went really in depth, showed video examples and answered questions from new players in the chat, but I'm going to keep this one really short and simple. Here's 3 tips to level up instantly from a brand new fresh beginner player to someone who can play like a seasoned veteran. Let's jump into it. So first off, we have the 3s and 5s rule. This is for your turn 1 build. Every foundation you play in your first turn should be on a 3 difficulty or a 5 if possible. I would not recommend playing 2 checks or 1 checks for new players, and following this method you can usually guarantee a minimum build of 4 foundations, right? And the goal is typically to build 5 on turn 1. That is like a great benchmark. Some really greedy decks have been trying to build 6, but it can be a trap to build too many foundations turn 1, especially if you're going second. If you're going first, pretty much never an issue. You're going to want to build as many as you possibly can because the rival can't attack on their next turn. But a great way to maximize that first turn efficiency is to kind of plan your turn out in advance. And again, this is a tip that is about compartmentalizing information and making games go much quicker and snappier for you. So it's all about just instantly recognizing what's the most efficient build. We're going to worry about prioritizing better foundations later once we're more experienced with the game. But one of those ways that we can prioritize these foundations is to remember to commit our face downs first, because face downs are just fuel. They're essentially blank foundations. They don't have abilities. Even a lot of face up foundations end up being blank at different times in the game, right? So the next step is identifying functionally blank foundations. So we want to commit our face downs first, pretty much always. And then we want to identify which foundations are going to help us out the least from identifying which foundations we don't need. And Tim Keefe actually has a really great video on ways to organize your stage. And again, it's not so much about making you a better player, so much as allowing you to get these systems and processes down much quicker. The rare exception, and the only reason I included it in this presentation is because this is a starter deck product where this comes up. The rare exception is when you have a foundation that readies itself or does something when you destroy it. So the foundations that do things maybe when you destroy them, especially if you're a brand new player and you've only played with starter deck cards, is from the Bakugo starter. These are cards you might commit first before a blank foundation, simply because we're planning to destroy foundations for bonuses, and these both, you know, this one gives +2 damage when you destroy it. And then if you're Bakugo specifically, when you use burst speed, it goes into the discard pile. You can burn your opponent for 2 health. So these are the rare exceptions, things like this. Or of course, a card that is going to ready itself, you know, you want to commit first to get that resource back. So getting that out of the way is going to speed games up, and it's going to free up your mental process to make the really tough decisions down the line. And then last up is probably maybe the worst tip as far as once you get more experienced with the game, but this is something that really helped me out early on. So these 3 tips are all tips that I adopted into my strategy basically overnight, and I saw a radical change in my win rate at locals back when I was a young pup learning the game in 2014. You know, these are things that someone sat down and sort of explained to me, and I just incorporated all 3 of them together. So, you know, the face downs are fuel, the 3s and 5s, and blocking the first and the last. So blocking the first attack ensures that you won't get repeatedly stunned out or take free and easy pokes from your opponent. The best example I have for that is, you know, let's say that your opponent plays a back alley haymaker, a very common attack through all the formats it's been legal in. They stun 2 of your foundations, and you maybe have a risky block on this first one, and you might potentially tap out. You know, you might potentially commit all of your foundations to block this first back alley haymaker. However, if you don't block this back alley haymaker and they play a second one, there's going to be a drastically reduced chance that you block that one. So blocking the first attack ensures that follow-up stun attacks, follow-up ways to deny your resources, aren't going to plague you. And then taking free and easy pokes is just a really good way to lose a longer game, letting the opponent get momentum because you're afraid of later attacks in the turn is a huge part of the skill expression of this game. And again, it's a big reason why maybe potentially later on, like, this sort of a rule becomes way less applicable overall. And then blocking the last means any lethal attack, or if you know your rival isn't likely to pass any more checks. So if they're completely tapped out, they've got 3 cards in their card pool, you're probably safe to block this one. And again, at higher levels of play, more finely tuned decks, this becomes a lot harder to recognize, especially with characters like Tokoyami in the format. But, this is the time to block. Essentially when the opponent doesn't have any more gas, you might as well not take this damage, right? So unless these are cards you need to backswing on your next turn, you're generally going to get more out of the additional review of even partial blocking attacks. And so blocking the last means any lethal attack, because obviously we're going to lose if we don't, or if you know that the rival just isn't likely to keep attacking you, that's when you're free to start blocking attacks. And then blocking early also forces the rival to take more risks. If they hit you with their first attack, right, they get the momentum to fuel things like Decoy Duplicate, to fuel things like maybe a Shock Treatment or a Specialized Sound Waves, really powerful cards later on, and they're happy with that, and they'll just build afterwards. But if you block the first attack, they have to play a second attack with progressive difficulty, which is another control check they have to make. It's another opportunity for them to check bad and give up resources going into your next turn. But you have to make sure you're still able to block the last attack afterward. And that is the beauty of our entire game at the highest level. It is picking and choosing when your blocks matter, picking and choosing when and where to divulge resources. And that's where the back and forth of the enhanced stuff really comes in. But this has been something that helped me out immensely when I first started playing the game. And it is something that maybe grew my love for blocking early on, because I noticed that just having a basic rule set when I didn't know the card pool, I didn't know what every attack does, I didn't know what every deck did, I just told myself, I'm not giving up anything for free. I'm not giving up anything easy. So if you have a vanilla statted attack and I had a block zone that matched it, I was going to be completely blocking this attack early on, and that was really helpful. And then, of course, blocking too much early, leaving yourself wide open, makes it so the opponent just has to do some math. It gives too much information to the opponent away. So blocking all the middle attacks is just something that can be really nebulous and hard to tackle. So blocking the first means not giving up easy momentum and free damage. Blocking the last means not taking lethal attacks, basically using that life as a resource, or identifying when the rival has committed too many resources and maybe they're not, putting speed on things. They're not using EX on this attack. They're not divulging more resources because they know their turn is probably going to come to an end after this. So then you are free to block without being punished afterwards. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. Maybe if you're a veteran player watching this, what are some tips you have for new players? Leave them down in the comments below. Let me know if this helped you guys. Let me know if you're a new player and you have implemented these strategies and have since reaped the benefits of it, because I would really like to know. A lot of this stuff, it comes off as obvious to a lot of veteran players, so it's very tough for us to decide, when making this sort of content, what is really helping you guys. So if this was helpful to you, please leave a comment down below and let me know so I know to make more content like this in the future. Anyways, this has already been way too long. 10 minutes for an explanation on these basic tips is probably too much. So hopefully this has been helpful. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.